last podcast when you and I left and everything, and you and I kind of started talking about our military service and everything like that, and we're kind of venting and whatnot too, and you know, that's a perfect example of being vulnerable and everything too. I mean, both of us went through some shit. You were talking about, your service and stuff like that, and I'm like, you still served, like, you 100% still served. Like, I don't care what anybody says. Like, you still did your time and stuff like that. Like, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, the military is the military is like a horrible relationship, man. Oh my, I shit you not, man. They will gaslight you and fuck you 7 ways to Sunday, man. Um, like you say, hey, I got this going on. No, you don't. You're fine. Grow the fuck up. Like, grow up here. And it's like, people actually go through shit, and it's hard because when you're in a situation like that too, there's not a whole lot you can do. And I think, especially for me, like getting out and everything, seeing that there are people that actually give a shit too is huge. Um, and actually to see that, and I think that's where a lot of my trauma comes from too, is like being gaslit for so long by the military saying like, you're fine. And I'm like, am I though? Am I really? And like, now 4 years later, getting out, it's a whole different perspective and everything too. Like, there's people like you, the group that we're a part of and everything too. It's there's people out here that care. There's people out here that care, that want to listen, that give a shit about how you're feeling and give a shit about your mental health, your mental well-being, and want to see you get the help that you need, whether it be professional or whether it be personal. Like, sometimes all you need is just to sit down for a cup of coffee and have a conversation with somebody. And I think that's what we do here. I mean, we have a great relationship with the group of guys that we hang out with, and you can sit down and have a conversation with any one of them.
And be very open in a safe space. Being
Yeah.
vulnerable also comes with having a safe space.
Yeah.
Having that safe space and knowing you can trust those around you and trust whoever you're being vulnerable around so that they don't use it as ammo.
Yeah.
They don't tear it down. And I know I'll skip over it a little bit, but I know with societal norms and whatnot, it's not known for man to be vulnerable because it's seen as weak.
Yeah.
And it can deter us from relationships because we don't want that significant other to see us as weak. So it's if we create a fear of losing them. So then we go to the places where we're not venting, we're not talking, we're not properly communicating, and we're not being vulnerable. We're not showing them we really are, and that leads to a lot of man's mental health. Wait a minute.
You interrupted me.
I did. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So I'm going to take that a step further.
All right, go ahead, man.
You're not venting in the proper way. You're not venting with the proper people. You're taking it to places that you shouldn't be. It's like,
Yes.
I'm going to be bold with this one. There are times where my dick has taken me places that I'd tell you what, I wouldn't go with a gun. That's for damn certain.
It's true.
But it's true. Like,
Yeah, it's true.
you take the wrong way out.
Yeah.
You make poor decisions because you're not venting. You're not taking care of yourself. So in my mind, it's just like with a degree and everything too. It's like when you're going to do a job, I'm going to take somebody with experience over a degree any day of the week. That's just me. I'm going to take a man who's vulnerable, who's able to sit down and talk about his feelings, talk about what he's going through and everything, over somebody who's not any day of the week.
I'll take that I agree 100%. I'll take somebody who's willing to admit, like, hey, I'm here to learn. I don't know much. I'm here to build myself up.
Yeah.
I don't know everything.
Yeah.
And that takes true vulnerability, especially nowadays with people. And, yeah, you don't know everything. I don't know how to do this. It takes vulnerability to ask for help, especially as a guy. Oh, man. To admit we don't know something, man, and we feel inadequate about something.
I would rather, we talk about that quite a bit at work and everything too. The I know guy. Oh my God. Everybody knows the I know guy. Everybody knows him. Everybody knows the guys. Yep, exactly. He's like, hey, so we do this. And he's like, I know. I was like, do you? Because you just showed up yesterday. So please explain to me how you know this.
Real quick. You know how long it took me to stop? It became just a regurgitating habit. Oh yeah, I know. Or not? You're feeling stupid. Somebody brings up something. Oh, have you heard of this? Yeah, yeah, I have. I've heard it. Yeah, you heard of that? Sure. I remember I caught myself through catching a friend.
Gary, it's okay to not know it.
I know. I know. But no, it's real,
It's
man.
hard.
We catch ourselves doing that, and now I still have to catch myself because I'm so used to. I got used to saying it, so I watch how I speak every time.
Because it's a stigma. It's
Yes.
such a stigma around men and their health and everything too, because we're expected to jump into the unknown and be like, "Yep, we know.
I know.
We know what we're doing."
Yeah.
Like,
No,
and we're sitting there,
absolutely.
we're sitting there like, I have not a clue what I'm doing. You get home at the end of the day and you're like, I might be autistic. I'm just saying.
But there comes a time, I know when I said I know plenty of times, where I had to get home. I'm like, why did I say that? Mm-hmm. Why did I say that? And learning true vulnerability and the strength and the power in it is saying, hey, can you teach me?
Because
I
now,
don't know.
now you go one of two ways. Now you either dive deeper into the lie of I know, and you got to back that shit up, or you have to backpedal and be like, hey, I actually don't know what I'm talking about. Can we maybe go over that again?
I was just playing with the team.
I see that. That's very good. I'm proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm not going to touch it because I'll knock that shit all over.
See, you're being vulnerable. You're being honest with.
I'm 100% honest with that.
No, but when it comes to relationships, how important is vulnerability for you? If I can ask that question, and if you can be
For me,
Yeah,
if
for
I
you.
can be vulnerable, I think it's incredibly important because I think obviously like the first, few months of the relationship
Yeah.
is, really about getting to learn each other. You're really in that honeymoon phase. And to me, I never like to leave the honeymoon phase. Like, especially when I get into a relationship, I am going to do everything I possibly can to stay in that phase for as long as humanly possible.
Go Sonny.
If it's 2 years, 5 years, whatever. Like, I'm going to do everything I can. I'm the type of guy that's going to, hey, you need something? Okay, I'm going to send it to your work so that way you have something to fucking eat, because I can tell you right now that that's just who I am. Or,
Okay.
hey, random day, flowers, cool. Random day, go out to dinner or something like that, awesome. Love that kind of shit. I think that's important. But also on the flip side of that, there's the quality time, the words of affirmation and stuff like that. There's the quality time and acts of service.
Yeah.
The words of affirmation, being vulnerable, saying like, hey, I'm not feeling myself today. I'm not feeling like I'm worthy. I'm not feeling like I'm adequate enough to be in this relationship kind of thing. I think it's important to say, like, to get those a little bit too, not just give them. And I can tell you right now, the relationship I'm in is fantastic when it comes to that. Like, it's very important to me to be like, hey, like, I'm not feeling myself. And she will literally sit there and be like, what can I do for you? Is there anything physically, tangibly that I can do for you, or do you just need a vent? And being able to be that vulnerable and be like, hey, I'm going through some shit today. I had a rough day at work, or hey, I'm going through some shit today. I just am not feeling it. I'm feeling depressed. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling low. And being able to verbalize that instead of, just keeping it like right here in like your throat. Oh, God, that's the worst. That is the absolute worst. That's important. That's very important to me.
It is important being vulnerable and having that safe space. But I say being vulnerable almost it can become a skill in a way. You have to learn. You have to open those doors up. And also, it takes a skill to learn how to allow somebody else to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
It takes a skill, and whether it's a friendship, intimate relationship, it's a skill. So how far would you give a person that you're trying to be vulnerable with, say in a relationship, if you're not seeing things go the way you need them to go while you're being vulnerable?
Like time wise? Oof.
Yeah, I'll ask that question.
I'm going to turn that one over to Bo because I like it rough, and I will typically give somebody more chances than I probably should because that's just who I am as a person. Like I am the type of man that will give you every opportunity to be like, hey, like this ain't working right now. Can we work on something? And I'll bring up my vulnerabilities and how I'm feeling, and you know, sometimes it'll get better, sometimes it won't, and I will stay much longer than I probably should.
Yeah, and this is something that I've really worked on since my last relationship and seeing what I needed to work on. And this is being vulnerable in the sense that I could have done better at communicating or bringing up those topics of, hey, I feel like disconnected. I feel these things, and practicing stating how you're feeling. So with that vulnerability of how long does it take, I think it depends on the situation. Well, especially in mine, she had gone through deployment, got back, so every situation is different. So you got to give time and understanding and patience and love that way.
Absolutely.
But I think it should be an ongoing conversation. And, you know, I realize for myself that I could have initiated those conversations or talked about it a little bit more, not just on vulnerability, but on other things. And, well, being vulnerable, saying, hey, I really want to talk about this, and being open to getting rejected. I think that's the big thing, is that when you're trying to be vulnerable, having those discussions and saying, I want you to be vulnerable. I want you to tell me what you need and want. I want you to show me every nook and cranny of your essence, scary, disgusting, whatever you think it is, so we can see each other in its entirety. And then, but be open to being rejected. But to answer your question directly, it really depends. But having those conversations, if you keep having those conversations and it doesn't seem like there's something that's not working, then maybe go to therapy. And if that doesn't work, then the relationship isn't for you guys, because it seems like there would be a lot of work to be done individually. Everyone says they need to work on a relationship or friendship. This can be friendships too, where instead of working on the relationship or the friendship, you got to work on yourselves, because once you work on yourself and start being vulnerable and start doing all the things that needs to be done to self-actualize and get better as a human being, that's when you can bring a more beautiful relationship. I went off on a little tangent there, but
That's a good tangent.
But
Great
but,
tangent.
Okay, here's a question
Yeah.
for you. But what if only one person is putting in that effort? What do you do then? Do you give them the chance, or do you verbalize that, like, hey, I'm the only one putting in the effort right now, and give them a chance to actually reciprocate? Or how do
Communication,
yeah.
yeah, communication. It goes all the way down there. You got something?
Yeah,
Go for it.
I'm going to be bold here. But as I've talked to you about this and some other friends about my most recent relationship, in that sense, she felt that if she was vulnerable, and this can be friends too, I want to make sure it's abroad for everyone here and listening. But she said to me, if I told you what I needed and wanted, I gave you my playbook, and now I don't feel as genuine afterwards. It's like, that's a tough thing to hear, because and now you're like, well, that's how we know how to be there for each other, and you have to articulate, like, that's not healthy, that's something you need to communicate, and so that's calling it out and stating, and I didn't do it in the moment. Full transparency, I didn't do it in the moment, but you have to, from my learnings of what I didn't do, saying, hey, this is unhealthy, and stating it like it is, and saying, hey, if we need to continue this healthy relationship or friendship, this can't happen anymore, because this is not fair. We can't read each other's minds as people. We have to have those conversations and be scared to be open to be rejected and not loved, and facilitate that safe space.
Listen, I'm going to spell that out even better for you. I'm autistic as fuck, so you better spell that shit out for me, or else I'm not going to see it.
Yeah.
Especially guys.
Like,
don't pick up
we
hints.
don't. We don't. We're not mind readers. Just tell us what, in the words of the Notebook, what do you want? Like, just tell me. And I'm just like, and that's the thing too. And that's the thing that I had to tell my relationship too. Is like, I was like, I need you to like paste that shit on a billboard so I see it. Like, I can't read your mind. Like, I need you to just be open and honest about it.
I think communication, when they say communication is the key, it goes so far. Needs and wants have to be communicated.
Yeah, for sure.
Needs and wants have to be communicated. I don't know what you like. Some things on a very, very small scale I can figure out. You like me coming home and doing a certain thing. Certain things can be figured out. But
Yeah,
for the most part, it has to be communicated. Teach me how to love
Yeah.
you.
There's social cues and everything. I can tell. Oh my god.
Social cues we can pick up on, but for the most part, when it comes to the deeper feeling, the deeper love in that part, it needs to be communicated. Let's talk about it. I don't like when you do this. I prefer when you do that. Let's communicate.
Yeah.
Last week when you did this, I'm really not feeling it,
Yeah. Prime
and being okay with that. Go ahead.
prime example of this.
Yeah.
Oh my god. So, I'm not trying to. I want to preface this whole thing with saying I am not trying to talk shit about my last relationship at all.
No names.
No names.
All right, cool.
No names.
We have no idea. Never met her.
Exactly.
All right.
But my last relationship, holy sweet baby fucking Jesus. I could come home, I could clean the entire house, I could make it spick and span, and she would come through and clean it after me because it wasn't up to her standards. It wasn't up to what she wanted. So when I approached her and said, "Hey, I see you doing this. What can I do to make it so you don't have to continue to do this?" She was like, "I don't know. I just have to do it." And I'm like, can we
Pros
talk
and
about this for a
cons
second?
of being vulnerable in a relationship. You have the pro where they see you, they understand you,
Yeah.
and you could be vulnerable. Now they know how to actually not even help be there for you. The cons, they have ammo. I've been through that.
Oh my
When
God, yes.
what I gave out got shot back at me, and whew, when I tell you that can break any man down.
Yeah.
Him actually breaking down his walls to be vulnerable with you and give you that side of him that's in society is supposed to be strong. And he gives that to you, and you turn around and you put those bullets in that gun, and you turn it right back at his weakest moment. And you tear us down.
So
But
that
it has
yeah.
I'm sorry, but it has its pros. You're in the right relationship and being vulnerable, and they learn how to let you be vulnerable. You have to learn how to let each other be vulnerable, and that takes a skill set. Working on yourself, like you spoke about earlier, you're working on yourself to learn those skill sets, to have those tools to work in that relationship, to learn how to let somebody be vulnerable, let somebody speak, and not try to fix everything. Let someone speak.
Yes.
Be there.
So that happened in a previous relationship of mine too. Like you guys know, like I'm very big into my faith now and stuff like that. It's very important to me. Prior to this, I wasn't. Wouldn't say I was like a non-believer kind of thing, but I was questioning quite a bit of shit